that blow, baby, in the dark trees that blow.
Welcome to Twin Peaks Unwrapped. I'm your host, Ben Durant, and beside me is...
Bryon Kazaska.
And we've got Jill Watson with us. Hi, Jill.
Hello.
So our book is out, and I thought we could talk about our book. This could be, we usually have a lot of guests on the show, and we talk about their work and what they're doing. And we're going to be selfish and talk to us about our stuff today. And the reason we want Jill on the show is because she was one of the editors of the book. Thank you, Jill, for actually doing that for us.
Oh, it was my pleasure. I was really excited to read the book. And when you guys asked me to help, I was actually kind of fiendishly approaching each chapter and each installment as they showed up in the shared drive with glee, thinking that I was really getting away with something. So thank you for including me in the process. Your book is fantastic, and I had so much fun taking that first pass at it.
And it meant so much to us. And we spend this time on it, and you're so into it, and he's like, is this good? Is this make any sense? So to get feedback from you was so helpful. I was a little more relieved. It's like, okay, maybe this isn't the worst book ever made.
No, and you're right. It's hard to have that perspective when you're so deep in it and you've been working on it for so long and so hard. Honestly, it was so well organized and laid out that I didn't have to do much. There was, a lot of punctuation to deal with, but other than that, no one really cares about that. It's the content that matters. And boy, you guys nailed it. You talked to everybody. Yeah. You talked to everybody for this book.
It was pretty cool. We got a lot of people contributing to the book. It was pretty special. And people hear we got all these interviews and we have so many people in this book. But it's interesting. I don't know if everyone understands how it's laid out. It's not like I got Kyle MacLachlan and it's just his interview. You know what I mean? I kind of think of it as a conversation. And so some of these interviews, like Sherilyn Fenn, we've had on before. So you might have her interview, but it's a piece of it. And she might be talking about something, and Kyle then is responding to something like that. So I don't know if people understand that structure, that we're following every episode, every movie and part and all that. But in there's kind of a conversation of one person will share something and that person sometimes will respond to it.
Just so everybody knows, Ben is the mastermind behind getting interviews for the podcast. And then when he decided to do the book, I'm like, all right, well, we have a lot of interviews. And then Ben's like, but I'm going to get more. And I don't know how he does it, because it's like, to me, it's magic. But he'll just be like, I got so-so. And I
got David Duchovny.
I know. And it would blow my mind every week when Ben would text me who we got. Near the end,
I was going to go there.
It was frustrating because I was like, Ben, we got to write a book. This book has to come out.
I got another interview.
He's got another interview. But listen, all the credit goes to Ben for doing that, because it made the book extra special, that all that hard work turned into gold. I thought, it's really something special when you look at it, and the conversations do flow, even though it wasn't sometimes intentional, they somehow magically do work. And when I say that is like old interviews and new, they mush together just so well. I'm sorry, Jill, what were you going to say?
Oh, I was just going to say that it's some of that Joanna Ray, David Lynch magic in the casting and the crew that's assembled, that when they talk about very different things sometimes about the same episode, it's in your book, it does seem like a conversation. It seems like each quote feeds off the last. Right. And it's just magic the way it all came together.
That's how my brain works, though. My brain is in a strangely disorganized, organized fashion in some way.
Yes, it's an organized chaos.
I guess so, because I can see patterns, and I can say, oh, this person said this thing, and this person said this thing, and it kind of flows together. And
I don't know how. Yeah, and Ben wasn't mad madman putting like those pieces together.
Well, you would have the first pass, and then I would go. A lot of times, you're like, okay, this makes sense for this episode. Yeah. This person's talking about this episode, and you would go through it, and then I'd go through it, and it's like, well, what about this and this? And
I mean,
it was, for both of us, I feel it's almost like a puzzle. You're putting things together, you're building it.
I put the outline out, right, and then Ben went in, and then he was just like, he tightened that outline with what he thought was even better, and then having Jill, Rebekah, your wife Tracy, and then even Scott going through.
Yeah, these are all the editors.
Yeah, not saying they changed anything, but wording and commas and grammar, and then like giving it that little splash that it needed. It all came together.
Yeah, I don't always understand that. It's like, oh, that makes it look so much better that the editors did. They made it make more sense. And
because by the end of the book, I was like, how many times can I use the word awesome? I gotta come up with a better word. And like sometimes I told Ben, I'm like, this is not my forte, writing. So going through, I would struggle, but I would do my best to change up the way my expressing myself through a thesaurus or whatever, things I don't usually do. I'm very generic when I write things. I mean, it comes from my heart, but I'm not the best when it comes to writing stuff. But like, this was a challenge, and I think everybody really did a great job.
The interesting thing is that you guys do this podcast, so you're used to talking and you're used to expressing yourself verbally, and it's a very different animal when you have to write for the page.
Right.
So what I found was really interesting is that you were able to take all of these verbal interviews and put that puzzle together, make it sound like a conversation in writing. So in other words, you're kind of putting it into, from the verbal into the written, and then the book flows almost like a podcast. You can hear the voices in your head. So it becomes a conversation that jumps off the page again.
Yeah.
And with your commentaries at the end of each chapter, where each of you give your impressions, and then the community impressions, it's just incredible. It's incredible how it all flows conversationally like that. So definitely. Congratulations. You really did something extraordinary.
Thank you. Yeah. We're one of the same.
You did a great job, Jill, explaining it, that we have these interviews where they have their conversations, which is the behind the curtain. So there's a section behind the curtain where you're getting the cast and crew talking about the episode, and then you get our part of that. I know. I think some people are thinking, oh, I've already listened to the podcast, so there's nothing new. But this book is definitely more than 50%, maybe even 70% new, because you're getting some of our old interviews, but you're also getting new stuff from us. Bryon, you and I never said like this is our favorite quote from this episode. We've never talked about our favorite scenes. We sometimes we'll talk about what we enjoyed our first pass through.
But this is like my favorite stuff 5 years later.
This is me sitting down and saying, oh, when I watched this episode, I really love that line. And I don't know, it's kind of cool. I think it's fun just because Scott, who's editing this is what Scott says. He's looking at this like, what is Bryon and Ben thinking? Those are not my favorite quotes. Those aren't my favorite scenes. But it's like, that's the time we live in. Like, I think we enjoy hearing other people, what they have to say. And I think a lot of the community says like, hey, this is my opinion. But it was funny. Scott was telling me, I don't know what you guys are thinking because that's not my favorite.
And I think that's a part of the appeal to the fans, because when fans get together, that's what we talk about. And we'll fight about it. I've got and knock down, drag out arguments about Evelyn and James and various aspects of that. So, and I don't think I'm alone there in the fandom. So I think that was really clever to include that, so people can have that argument like Scott did, with you, but not to your faces like Scott did.
Yeah, Scott is the only one who's texting us.
Yes. And Bryon, our conversation where we're going into our quotes and our scenes, we were actually in the studio. So, I think we've talked about how for the whole year, 1 week we would be doing our show, and then the next week we would be doing our book.
Right.
And so we actually would come back into the studio and we would record
fresh new takes on it.
And so have conversations. I think because my thinking was that we wanted to still have that banter. The book felt like the podcast.
And then transcribing those was hellish. But, it was great.
That was one
fun.
of the things I get to give to you.
I did that. But it was a lot of fun. But I always tell jokingly to Ben, and I mean, I don't know if anybody, I at this point, I don't think it's going to happen. I always told Ben those recordings, I would put them together and make an audio version of the book. And I say this out loud. I'm wondering if other people think that's a good idea. But
here's why it's a bad idea. Here's why it's a bad idea. Every week, every other week, I would come in. Bryon would have his stuff together, and then he's like, "So what do you think, Ben?" It's like, "I'm not prepared." This is me.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm doing. I didn't get all my stuff.
But
together.
in all Ben's
skip me.
But in Ben's defense, Ben was getting like an interview for the book, so then he wasn't prepared for that section of the book.
I was transcribing. I mean, we were doing.
We were doing so much. So I mean, in Ben's defense, I get why he wasn't always prepared because he was going to fill in the blanks later on. But I thought it would be kind of cool, like. If everybody remembers about a couple years ago when David Lynch and Chrysta McKenna put out that book, and Lynch did an audio version of the book, an unabridged, and it was literally so different from the book. It was
basically he didn't want to repeat himself. He just
telling stories,
right?
The audiobook is Grandpa telling stories. It's fabulous.
I know. So, Jill, this was my thinking. My thinking was...
But it's not worth it. It's not good enough.
I don't know. Maybe one day. I was thinking to myself, what if I just took these recordings and I edited them all together and it's just Ben and myself, and I'm like, this could be an unabridged audio version of the book, but it would become kind of different, and there'd be a lot of things you didn't get in the book.
Oh,
but Ben would be missing a lot of stuff, so that's where it doesn't work. So I guess I can't do it.
No, don't say you can't. Here's what I want to hear. I want to hear you and Ben and Scott, Bryon, acting out all of the actors. I want to hear your impressions.
Oh, man.
So, like when you have that conversation about an episode, you'll have, Scott being Richard Beamer, and then Bryon is Ray Wise, and Ben is Julie Cruz.
Oh, man. That's a nightmare. It's a train wreck.
Yeah, that would be a lot of fun, though. But yeah, that would
I would listen to that. I would absolutely listen to that.
Yeah, community rewatch, the audio book edition. We have the Red Room act it all out.
Yep.
They can do us, impressions of us.
Man.
Oh, but God, I don't want to hear
That's
that.
crazy. So, Jill, you're editing this, you're going through this book, and you get to the point where part 10 of The Return, or season 3, and John Neff is talking about no stars.
Yeah.
And you reach out to me. And what did you say? What did you say about this?
So Rebekah Del Rio has become a very good friend of mine, and I have so much respect for John Neff and his work. And oh my word, he is such an amazing musician and producer. And in my conversations with Rebekah, I've heard so many stories about No Stars and about the being in David Lynch's studio with David and John, and how that went down. And it's such an amazing story. So I texted Rebekah and I said, look, I'm editing this book that Ben and Bryon are writing, and John Neff is telling the story about No Stars. And, would you mind if I reach out to them? Because I think that they would love to include your story. And she said yes. So I reached out to you guys to see if you would be interested in talking to her. That's how that came about.
Yeah, and we were always interested. I mean, we met her at the Festival of Disruption a few years ago.
Right.
And I think I'd emailed her, and it just never worked out. And so, Jill, when you reached out to us, it's like, oh yes, of course. I mean, of course, I want to hear another voice, because this is only John Neff's take on it. And to then get her point of view in the book, it meant so much more. And if anything, I was like, John, you didn't sell it very well. She did so much work, and it almost makes you angry. And I don't think John did it on purpose, but you like to hear Rebekah's version of things. She's like, damn, she worked her ass off. Like she worked really hard to make this work, and the things that David Lynch put her through and stuff. And so it's so special to have that in the book to share.
It rounds out that story, but also you have to think about it. There's two sides to every story. And John Neff doesn't know what she went through.
I guess. I mean, you're right. He knows himself.
He knows his point of view of a producer. But as the artist, that's a side that he wouldn't know what she was going through emotionally. Nobody would. And to have that now in our book forever, Jill, I thank you so much, because that's amazing.
Oh, absolutely. And, she doesn't know what they were going through. And they're all such professionals that they wouldn't, if there was something going wrong or something emotionally going on with them, they would just do the work.
Right.
And it's such a special thing, I think, for all of the artists and all of the actors to be able to tell their stories and have that recorded forever.
Right.
And Jill, is there something that you like, your favorite in the book that you really enjoyed?
Oh, man. Oh, I loved the whole thing. There were some absolutely hilarious parts that, I loved. But I think my favorite thing, honestly, were the community commentaries. I'm a sucker for stories and people's stories and the different perspectives like you were talking about. Yeah. And to be able to find out where all of these people in the community that were so honest and open, they were so generous with their stories for you. And just to be able to hear what, how everybody came across the show and how everybody felt about it initially. And to me, it made me feel more immersed in the community.
I agree.
And I think that just adds to the show. Even it adds to the feeling of the show, and just that feeling of connection with people who, most of them, we'll never be in a room together, but it just, I don't know, that I think that's probably my favorite aspect of the book.
Nice.
Yeah.
This is our first book, and like all we kept to do is we kept doing like taking in all the stuff. Like, okay, it's like we're gonna get as many interviews as we can. We're gonna reach out to the actor and the crew people and get anything that they want to contribute to it, and we'll get the community people, and Bryon and I will do our thing. But like, you don't know what's gonna happen and how this book. My biggest fear was like I was concerned that like we're forcing ourselves to go over every episode and every part and every movie, and like other books would be like we're just gonna basically say combine 5 episodes together. And I was kind of scared. It's like, are we going to be able to fill this? And then other times I thought, like, do we have too much information and are we going to have to cut things? I really would. And you know this, Bryon, I was considering cutting you and I out of the book.
Which I said no. I was not going to let that happen.
First of all, yeah, you wouldn't. First of all, why would we call it Twin Peaks Unwrapped if you and I were not in the book?
Right.
But I was kind of, but I was like, oh, the interviews have to be, we need to make sure we have room for the interviews and stuff. And then I was like, I mean, I wouldn't have done this, but I considered a little bit like, should I get the community commentary? Is there too many commentaries if Bryon and Ben are commentary and then other people are commentary? Is the book getting filled up with just commentary?
But that's what it is.
I know.
The whole book is that.
But these are all fears that like when you're building the book, you're kind of like, is this going to come together? Is this going to be a 1,000-page book? And then, we got to go back to Scott and the publisher and say, we are self-publishing. We can't afford to do a 1,000-page book. Right. And
a lot of fears.
Yes.
No, this is not the David Lynch way. Who the F cares how long a book is?
Yes.
Jill, piggyback what you're saying. Like, I think Ben and myself, since we started this podcast, always having the community part of it, and having the community always together. I remember one of my favorite memories of doing the show is like right before season 3 was going to happen in May of 2017. I told Ben, I'm like, let's go on Twitter and Facebook and and I reached out to other podcasters, right? And I said, let's promote each other. Let's every day say, go listen to the Red Room podcast, and here's why. Go listen to Diane, and let's promote. Let's pat each other on the back. Let's say nice things and be happy, and give each other 5-star reviews on iTunes. Let's do all these wonderful things for each other.
Because we're all in it together, and we all enjoy the show together. Right?
Yeah, and I mean, I think that was really cool. We were all doing it, and I remember another podcaster had mentioned how they never seen anything like this. Usually when you're doing a show, not Twin Peaks related, but another podcast based on another show, you're kind of on your own. You're an island. And and Twin Peaks was so different. And because we all shared the same values and morals when it came to a community. It was a community. It wasn't just I'm by myself. go screw you guys. So I think it's been a wonderful thing that we've made so many friends because of this podcast. It blows my mind. I don't even think I have this many real friends. Like I interact with on a daily. Yeah. Like it's like, wow, I can call these people my friends, and I don't see them, but I know them through the internet.
And so this book is like really, it's almost 5 years worth of our podcast. Right. And the things that we believed in our show, we kind of were able to put in the actual book.
Yeah.
Absolutely beautiful. And you're right. It's so unique to the Twin Peaks fandom, isn't it?
It is.
I wouldn't see this happening in like the Star Wars community, for instance.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so true.
And Jill, you're a good example of that too. I still love going when we went to the 2017 Twin Peaks Festival, and you were our tour guide. And you showed us the falls, and like that to me was so special. And I thought, well, it's like you are an amazing person. And then you I don't know the order, what day this was, but then you dressed up for the festival. Who was the character? Dido?
Senior Dido.
Senorita Dido is how Sabrina told me it's pronounced.
Okay. But that was like, it's like, I thought you were already cool, but to see you dress up.
That was an amazing costume, too. Yeah.
Thank you. That was my first cosplay ever.
Wow.
My first convention, any kind of my first cosplay. And it was so cool to walk around dressed like her because no one knew who I was.
Yeah.
Like I had to tell people.
I think it could have been a day later that I put it together. It's like, wait a minute, that's Jill.
I don't think I recognize you in the costume either.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
And the golden orb is what makes that costume. I mean,
do you know where I got that?
No.
I got that at a garden store. That's one of those lawn balls.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
That is so cool.
Those shiny lawn balls that are often seen with the pink flamingos.
Oh man, that is so cool.
Yeah, that was an awesome weekend too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, Jill, you saved our butts because we missed our bus. I
thought they were. So they said there were 3 buses. So I, for some reason, thought they were going to come back again for the 3rd bus, and not realizing that they were all
part of the 2nd bus.
It was part of the second. Yeah. I don't know. So we missed the bus.
No.
And then we were walking out, Jill, and I remember you said, "Hey, I know where all the stops are. Come follow me." And then we just drove behind you, and we went everywhere.
That was pretty cool. It was so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad. I don't remember that at all, but I'm glad. I'm glad that happened.
Yeah, so we got the tour from you, and like you were off the air, you were telling us how you were giving some other folks a tour, which is just like you're like the official tour guide over there now.
Yep, sure.
One of many. There are quite a few local folks who love showing people all the sites. You just have to know who to talk to.
Yep.
And we'll get you in some places that ordinarily you wouldn't even think of going to see. But it's always such a treat. It's actually my favorite thing to do, to show Twin Peaks fans around and to see their faces, because it's such a feeling for most Twin Peaks fans that they're coming home when they see that mountain, when they see the roadhouse for the first time, and when they see the falls for the first time. There's kind of a sense of familiarity that you see it go across their face, and then it's almost like there's a big sigh of relief, and it's just such a beautiful thing, and it's so fun.
Totally. It really is.
Yeah, it's like you're kind of like living through their experience. You're like reliving the whole experience through them, so you never lose that what's the word I'm looking for? That first time for you, you're living through their first time, which is kind of cool.
That's what it was with you with this podcast. I got to relive my joy of Twin Peaks to see how you thought of the show. So.
I know.
So Bryon, Jill?
Oh, I was just going to say, you get a real sense of that in the book, and the conversations in your quotes and favorites section, the conversation between the two of you, and the rewatch versus the old school fan.
Yeah,
right.
True.
Yeah.
So Bryon, do you have a favorite part of the book?
I mean, a favorite part of the book, I would say, is I will go with Jill on this one. My favorite part of the book are the community feedback part, only because, I have 2 favorite parts. That's one of them, because
the community commentary.
The community commentary, because you get to hear from some surprised people.
Yeah, we do have. So, real
Big
quick, just real
surprises
quick, we went through our list of everybody we had on the show, I think, pretty much. And I think we reached out to him and said, hey, if you're interested, you could, share something with us. We might put it in the book and stuff. So, yeah, I think that's where we started. But we also then went off and said, hey, I think this, these people are also fans. Maybe they would want to be a part of it.
This famous director or producer or this famous person. And they
right,
gave
somebody.
And I don't want to give it away, but some of those...
That's wild. It's wild to get a response back.
Right, and they're in our book, which it blows me away. And then,
that was so surprising and so cool. I mean, community commentary, and you're expecting, like Scott Ryan or Josh Minton or something, and what? Who? This wrestler? What are you? What?
Yeah. I know.
Very cool.
Very cool to have that support behind us from those people. And then my second favorite. I'm so happy we got to include some of our personal photos.
Yes.
And Jill, thank you for sharing the photo for the log on the very back.
Yeah.
You're very welcome.
Like, having personal photos to me means more than just having a generic photo that you could look up on Google. The fact that Ben and myself get to put some our favorite photos that mean something to us in this book that will forever be there is really cool to me. And I mean, there's some new photos that people shared with us that I don't want to give away, which is very special, that they were willing to share something of their experience with us. And that meant a lot, too, that they trusted us enough to be like, sure, here you go. And that was really cool. So I think everything else is wonderful, but those are my favorite parts because it's so cool to see that in writing and actually in a physical book.
Yeah.
Ben, what are your favorite parts of the book?
Yeah, you guys have said a lot of that. I do like this kind of like, without giving away, I love, the show is Twin Peaks Unwrapped, and I still like that I think, maybe I'm wrong, I feel like there's still some little nuggets there, things that 30 years later, we've never seen before, or we didn't know about. Like, oh, I didn't know that crew person had actually been in a scene of Twin Peaks or something like that.
Right,
like that was like, oh, have we ever heard that before? I don't remember hearing that. And so they were like these little things that I just love that, like, I don't think we've ever heard that before. And like, even Kyle, Kyle shares a few things, and it's just like, okay, this might be the first time he's ever shared things like that. And
right. Yeah, there are nuggets of gold in this book throughout.
I don't think it's intended to be like earth-shattering, like every single page. It's really, and we say this at the end, and we've said it in the other podcast. This is our version of Twin Peaks. It's like, our experiences over 5 years of doing the podcast and just loving the show.
Right.
Yeah, and there are some surprises for, as I know you guys know and have explored very deeply. Twin Peaks fans tend to like details, and there are a lot of new details that people gave you in this book. Things that, I've done a whole lot of reading about Twin Peaks. I've listened to a bunch of podcasts, and there are things in there there are a lot of things in there that surprised me. So yeah, nothing earth shattering. Like there's no,
David Lynch is going to say,
there are no explanations of season 3
right.
or episode 8, but. Yeah. There are definitely details that really stand out. So that's such a treat for people to read.
Yeah, totally.
And that's great to hear from you, an outsider, because that's like our fear was like, oh boy, are people are going to...
They're going to be like, oh, I read this already.
Right, right.
This is nothing, yeah.
Nothing new, but...
Nothing new.
No, it's like there are the things that are fairly commonly talked about when the casts do panels and things like that, but there's always a nugget. And I think you guys did a really good job of sifting through that and presenting a good story for new fans that haven't watched all the panels, don't have as much free time on Friday nights, maybe, as some of us, and haven't spent a whole lot of time on the YouTubes. But then also presenting the stuff for the hardcore fans who live for that stuff, who just love to say, oh, that's where that sweater came from, or, and it's so cool.
And I think I've said this before, but like, I don't know why it's taking me this long to realize, but it's like the directors are the people we should be talking to because they have
inside knowledge.
They basically know the whole episode. They know when I'm talking about season 1 and 2, they understand the whole thing. They can give you stories. They can say, well, the making of. And like I mean, I love talking to the actors and writers that we've had on the show. I think we got a lot more directors as we were putting this book together. And yeah, just to have all these directors like, oh wow, they've got stories to tell, and they've got sometimes things to talk about David Lynch about, and just their own making, and why did they do this, and why did this happen, and it's like, oh wow, like why is it taking this long for me to 4 years to realize that the people that we should be talking to are the directors? But
yeah, directors, producers, and the writers. I mean, when Harley Payton would come on, he was always kind of a treasure trove of knowledge.
Yeah, he does. He's known stuff, and I mean, he was a producer, writer, right?
Right. And another thing that's interesting is a lot of these folks are getting older, and their memories are fading, and that's going to happen to all of us one day. And having this book, getting their thoughts on stuff now, I think is like great, because one day those memories are going to be gone. And people like Brad Dukes and John Thorne and us 25 years later, and anybody else out there who tries to interview anybody or cast crew or whatever, is doing a great service for the whole community, because one day these people's memories they're not going to be able to remember things. And to have that, you know.
And the other part of that is that, you know, seasons 1 and 2, 30 years ago now, people don't really remember that. And I think with season 3 coming out just a few years back, a lot of folks, the directors, the writers, the producers, went back to seasons 1 and 2 and did that deep dive and were able to refresh their memories. So I think this was the perfect time to interview them while we still had it fresh again.
Yeah.
True. Yeah, that's a very good point. Did you have, besides maybe Kyle, did you have a favorite interview from this past year that we did for the book?
For me? Well, David Duchovny, I've said this before, was like the most amazing thing.
That's my pick too. And you know what's my pick is because I think he hasn't done a lot of interviews.
Right.
He did something for, I think, a DVD or something like that. I almost feel like he's more humbled, or he's more like, hey, he was just starting off, and you know,
his first big gig.
You're right. He hadn't had the X-Files. He wasn't a big name and stuff, and so he was just happy to be working on Twin Peaks. And to me, that was like so cool for his to share about his character and what he thought about the character and how he approached the character, and just to get that insight. And we got a little bit of that maybe other places, but it was cool to have in our book.
And hearing his voice in our ears was like weird. Like David Duchovny has his voice is very you can distinguish his voice.
And when he said Bryon, you just melted.
I was just like, oh man, David Duchovny just said my name. He knows who I am.
Hi, this is Ben.
Hey Ben, this is David Duchovny.
Hi David, thank you for calling us.
You're welcome.
I have Bryon here. He's my co-author as well.
Hey, how's it going?
Okay. Hi, Bryon.
So you have a few minutes, right? You have a little bit of time?
Yeah.
And I've said this many times before, but Jill, you must have heard of David Duchovny, "Why Don't You Love Me" song there, right? I mean, are you an X-Files fan? Yeah. Bryon didn't know about the song, so before we did this interview, I started I was just singing along, "David Duchovny, why don't you love me?" And Bryon thinks I'm crazy. Like, what are you
singing?
What are you singing?
What song is this?
So it wasn't until after the interview with him, I got it onto Apple Music there and played the song. And then now it's stuck in your head?
Yeah, and I tortured the hell out of my wife, like, constantly.
Scully!
It's a great song. And then I saw the video where she actually performed it live at Barnes & Noble for him.
Yeah, he was there. He was there with her. Right.
And
I don't think that's the official video. I think that was just something. No. He was doing a book tour, I think. And
which I wanted to go to. We didn't go. It was a Tuesday night at the Barnes & Noble in New York.
Why do they always do it on a Tuesday?
And I said to Ben, I go, this is after the Mark Frost one. Knowing how cool that was, I was like, David Duchovny is going to be at Barnes & Noble in New York. We got to go. No. And we just couldn't go.
Couldn't go. Instead, we got an interview.
Yeah.
And Jill, do you have a favorite interview? I mean, it doesn't have to be any of our new interviews or anything that you really enjoyed.
I love the Harley Payton bits.
Yeah, he's pretty honest, isn't he? He kind of like I think he usually gives his feelings on things. It's like
he doesn't hold back.
I'm sure.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
I really do. When you get the opinions, you get the facts, and you get the, this happened, and I was pissed off. And so-and-so was kind of being nasty that day. Or, I really like that.
It was funny. I mean, I would say that he must have shared. This is probably he's talked about before, but it's interesting to hear him say read about how he once started off as a typewriter. I think that's when he started off with a typewriter, and then they went to Macs in the second season. But it's just funny to think it's been so long since I've used a
typewriter.
No, yeah, I can't remember. I mean, I was in high school probably since I've used a typewriter.
Yeah, me too.
So it's kind of funny. Twin Peaks was being typed up.
When you say it was 30 years ago, you kind of put in a context, okay, where was I at that time? But you don't think about, what the technology was like at that time and, what the world was like. We had to pay long distance fees. We had to.
It's so true, right? If you had Apple, AOL, or you had to dial up, or you had to pay, was it by minute or hour for internet? Was it
AOL?
On AOL, you get a disc.
Gosh.
Remember, you get those discs with 120 free minutes on AOL.
That's crazy, isn't it? It's. I mean, in the age we live in, where we don't really pay for phone bills as per minute anymore. We don't internet, and it's crazy that we just.
We had to pay the internet through a disc. AOL time,
And 30 years ago, that was barely a thing. There were dial-up modems, but it wasn't until I think 93 till I had my first one, my first modem.
Yeah. I mean, I was in college. Solid. Maybe I remember in '95 really starting to try to do X-Files forums or something. I was definitely doing Twin Peaks. I go through Twin Peaks forums to try to research.
I had to rely on Entertainment Weekly or the TV Guide for my X-Files stuff because I didn't get a computer until I was a senior in high school, which was in 97, 98. So it's yeah, we didn't own a computer. So a typewriter, I remember typing things and using whiteout. That was a pain in the butt. Oh, I hated it.
Yeah, and then you move up to the fancy typewriter where you can erase a word before it types out the line. I had one of those in college before I got my computer.
The electric typewriter was amazing.
It was.
I loved my electric typewriter.
So yes, I love how old Harley Payton. No, I'm just kidding. I love Harley Payton interviews and the honesty. And I don't know what were your favorite interviews, you guys?
Yeah, we were talking with David Duchovny. I mean, you gotta love Kyle. I mean, just anything he says, oh, it's Kyle.
Yeah, that was another one that was pretty.
That's kind of wild that we got him. And I know people have always asked us, how do we get him? We don't know. I mean, honestly. I don't know. I kind of wonder. I kind of think was he not working, or did he have some time off? It's all right, I'll give these guys a bone.
We were just so lucky. I think it was just your persistence and luck came together.
The craziest thing is that we had done the podcast for almost 4 years. I never even bothered to reach out to his people. I was kind of that's a someday thing, and it was kind of okay, we're doing this book.
This is someday.
This is the someday.
Yeah, I got you loud and clear.
Cool.
Awesome.
Well, thank you for your time.
Of course. Thanks for your interest. I know you guys are passionate about Twin Peaks, so that's great.
Yeah, we really are. So I'm going to get started with, David Lynch has said you were born to play Dale Cooper. Do you think you were born to play him?
Absolutely. Who am I to question the wisdom of David Lynch?
Yes.
Absolutely born to play him. Yeah, he was. I slipped into that black suit pretty easily.
Yeah, I mean, that's crazy that we got to talk to him.
And we kept that a secret for so long. And, our 200th podcast, we announced the book, we announced we got Kyle, but we had kept that under wraps for at least a month or so.
It really is a year, right now. It was a year ago that we interviewed Kyle. I think it was when we're talking March. I think it was March.
Yeah, it was.
I think so. It feels like it. My birthday's in April.
How hard was it to keep that?
It's also crazy, Jill, to think Ben's idea for the book was around Christmas vacation-ish. We started
2 years ago.
A year ago.
Well, no.
Well, you're right.
So not this past Christmas. No, right. I'm sorry. Maybe it's 3 Christmases ago now. Because it wasn't last Christmas, and it wasn't the Christmas before. It was the third Christmas before that I originally said it to you. We were hanging out, and you were like, "Nope, not interested." And a year would go by.
Okay. I didn't know if you're counting that.
I'm counting. Right. I'm counting when you said no to the book. You said, "I don't have time for that. We're doing a podcast. When the podcast is over, we'll do a book."
He'll never let me live that down. But Ben is absolutely right. He was right about the whole thing.
I compromised though. Like the idea was that we have to do the book while we still have a podcast.
And you're right. It worked.
The people who listen to our podcast would know about the book.
Right.
But I knew I couldn't. There was no way we could do a weekly show and do the book. So I compromised. I said, okay, we'll take 1 week off.
And even that was hard. I told. This past January, people might be like, how come you guys only put one episode out? That was my fault. I told Ben, I said, we're done doing podcasts January. We got to get this book done. And Ben's just like, you're right, Bryon. You're right.
No, I did. You're totally right.
I was just like, we're done doing shows for right now.
Yeah, because we're
so much stress.
We had it there, but it needed to go through again and clean it up. And there just wasn't the time.
No.
The problem is that you and I are talking, and why can't we just put out a show? Because our standards sometimes are high enough that we want to edit it, and that takes up our time.
A show always goes through editing.
Pre-production, getting this show together, producing it, and then editing it.
Either Ben or edits the community rewatches, and I've been editing all the other episodes. But it's crazy, though. Last January, we started transcribing, and then near the springtime, we started getting interviews, and then summertime, we were like, okay, let's hit the library every Sunday. So from the middle of summer all the way up to the end of January, going into...
Did we go past Christmas?
Yes. All the way to the end of January, we were at that library once or twice a week. And
for the whole day.
Yeah.
For the whole day.
The whole day, we're at the library on Sundays from the moment it opened to close.
Do you think we were going to kill each other? Was it a strain on our relationship? Did we make it through?
There were some days, Ben was just driving me up the wall. He'd be so depressed about things, and it'd be like, but we were yin to the yang.
Right.
Ben would be stressing out, and I'd be like, listen, we're going to be fine. It's all coming together.
Now, Bryon says it's going to be fine because all of his stuff was done. I was stressing out because I still had stuff.
You still had to write your things that we were supposed to do last summer.
If I had only recorded it 6 months ago like I was supposed to, I wouldn't be in this boat.
I wasn't going to say that, Ben. But transcribing, I would turn to Ben and be like, hey.
It's finally caught up to me.
You didn't do this part. And Ben would be like, I'll get to it. And then come January, Ben's freaking out like, I got to write all these things. And I'm like, oh, my God. So he was stressing out, but I would try to be the anchor and be like, and I would work on other things the book needed to get done. Yeah. And we're always working in tandem on something.
We're always.
But I would be like, Ben, this book's going to be great.
How did I ever get done? How did I ever catch up? I don't know.
I don't even know. Miracles. A miracle happened, I guess.
Because since we're just laying it all out,
we're just laying it all out.
Bryan's like, we don't have to finish this year.
Yeah,
this is after. Yeah,
did I say that?
Many times.
I did say that
many times.
Because I saw the stress in Ben, and I felt really bad.
In the summer, was it August that we announced this? So we said that it was going to be out for April 8th for the 30th anniversary.
What I said is, we could push the due date to May or June.
Or the summer.
Well, June. And now here's my reasoning. I said to Ben, he was really stressing out, and I felt bad. I didn't want him to stress out so much. And I'd be like, listen, there's no shame in saying this book needs extra love and care and pushing it out to June. Now, Ben loves anniversaries, so his heart was set on April 8th. And I get that, and I wanted that goal to be met for Ben. So anything that could be done, I would do to help him. But he still had to do his thing, so I can't do that for him. But
why not?
But I know.
Why can't you? Ben said.
I know he would hate everything I said. So my other thought, I was trying to persuade him, and I'm glad we didn't. I'm glad we stuck where we are. But my other thought was, our anniversary is in June. Why doesn't the book come out on our anniversary?
So we told people it was going to come out in April, and it's an anniversary. It's a 30th. We're celebrating. To me, this book was like
I know, Ben. It's coming out. It's coming out. The book's out.
This book is like a celebration of our podcast.
See how passionate? I can't even say no to that. But I would try to say, hey, our anniversary is in June. It would celebrate us. And he's just like, F that. We're going.
I never said F that.
No, I know. He's like, we're going 30th anniversary, which, in all honesty, is the better.
Actually, the best way to motivate me was to get me angry. It's like, don't tell me I can't do this. Don't tell me I'm not going to get this book done.
I know.
Yeah.
I just didn't want Ben to be stressed.
Can't hike any further to the cask of Amontillado. Yes, I can.
I think John Locke.
Perfect reverse psychology.
Yeah.
Lost John Locke there. He's in a wheelchair.
Right.
And you know, going on a walkabout. It's like,
just don't tell me what I can't do.
Don't tell me I can't do this.
Yeah, you were Locke.
I was John Locke.
You were John Locke.
Yes.
Oh.
And I was Sawyer. I was just poking you all the time and cracking jokes.
There you go.
And be like, this book doesn't have to come out. And you're like, F you, Bryon. It's coming out.
Was it? Yeah. So it was able to come out early. We were actually able to, working with Scott Ryan. So the book was able to come out early. You can actually get it right now at bluerosemag.com. You can buy it and we'll ship it out to you. But the official release of April 8th is still true if you want to get it on Amazon. So
yes.
You'll be able to get it on Amazon on April 8th. And there's also the Kindle version. I keep saying it's April 8th, but it might be actually March 27th that the Kindle version will be available as well.
Yep.
And for the people that are concerned about the shipping prices, you can always get Kindle to get the digital version of the book, which is a lot cheaper too. I mean, if you're in the United States, it's $10.
Right.
Yeah.
There's only a limited supply of the physical book.
And we have no plans of doing a second printing.
No.
I mean, to me, this really was a celebration of it, and it's self-publishing. We have to put every book that was printed. We're putting our own money up. In addition to that, it was wonderful that we got pre-orders, and those pre-orders of people who supported us early on helped for that printing cost.
Yes.
So that's a big thing. But again, I don't think we're going to look at it and say, okay, how many more books do we want to print? I think this is just a one-time thing. So
right.
If you really wanted this book, I recommend you pick it up now.
I mean, if I had to place money on it, I would say by the end of the year, we probably will be sold out.
I told Scott, you never know. It could be next month or so. I mean, it all it all depends.
It all depends.
Again, we're not huge publishers. We're not going to have 1 million books to put out. We have a very limited supply.
From an outside perspective, I also just want to add that the physical copy of this book is beautiful. The artwork on the cover by Josh Howard is worth the price alone, just to have that print. So I would highly suggest to anybody getting the physical copy if you can. It's beautiful.
And there's something about still having physical things in your hands. And
right. You don't have to charge it.
No, there's that.
Yeah.
I mean, and to me, this could become my own reference guide because when we do like an episode, like we'll have episode 10. It'll say season 2, episode 10, The Man Behind the Glass, October 13th, 1990. It's kind of cool for me. I'm always like, when did that? It's like, when was Laura?
It is a great reference.
When was the murder of Laura Palmer? Revealed. It's like, was it November 10th, 1990? But like, it's one of those things where I can now go to this book and say, that was the date of that was released.
Totally.
Yeah.
And Josh Howard, like he was amazing. We reached out to him. He listened to the show.
And we've probably said this before, but again, it was like one of those things where I had an idea for a book cover. I was like, I mean, it was definitely the wrapped in plastic type thing that I wanted. We kept it back. But you, Bryon, you were like, I don't like that idea. Like I was throwing some things out at you.
And I would tell Ben, I would say, Ben, it's going to come to us. Let's not worry about. We hadn't even really started writing the book yet, and Ben's worrying about the cover, and I'll be like, Ben,
that's on my mind working.
Yeah, I'm like, the cover will come to us, but not now. We'll know it. Like we'll feel it together. Like it will hit Ben or me, and one of us will say, yes, I love it. And that's what I was waiting for.
Right. And we're at the library, and I was like, okay, you know what? I know Josh Howard is a big Twin Peaks fan. He does Twin Peaks. I mean, he draws Twin Peaks characters. And,
right.
And I was like, I haven't reached out to him, but let's first share his work. I wanted to show you, Bryon.
And I loved it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yes. How about this? You reach out to him. Tell him just say we want a cover, and we'll pay him or whatever, and we'll talk to him, and whatever he does, I will be happy with. I promise you.
I've heard you say this story before. You say that, but at the same time, it was like Ben wants it to be Laura Unwrapped, and we have to have our chevron striped through or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's almost like we kind of led him in the direction that we wanted.
But we both got what we wanted.
Right. And there was never anything when he got back. It wasn't like, well, Josh, this is nice, but I wish you would put blah, blah. And that never happened.
No, we loved it.
When we saw it, it was like, wow. And I think you're right, Jill. If you buy this, if you get the physical version of it, the detail of Josh's work, I'm always impressed that he has the little stones on her forehead and every line of the hair. It's just the artwork is just so beautiful.
Every highlight, every shadow.
Right, the shadows. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
It looked great on your shelf.
Right.
We had that moment together, and I'm happy we had it. Ben, we reached out. He texted me, and I said, yes, I love it. And Ben said, me too. And that was it. That was the moment I wanted.
You're right.
I wouldn't want to be right. I just wanted a moment where we're both agreed on it without being forced. It was like, I would always tell Ben, I like branding. Why do the big brands last so long? Because branding works. And our logo is us. And I feel like I don't want to stray away from that look too much. But I want something new and different. And Ben wanted Laura wrapped in plastic.
I wanted the idea of Unwrapped.
Right,
I wanted. We've always had Cooper as our logo with the chevron striped type.
Which I love.
Which I love. Is Andy has done for us. Bentley. He's done a great work on that. But I wanted something. We wanted something new. But I also like the idea of the unwrapping concept.
Yeah. It's something new, something old, and something blue. It kind of is.
It's blue. It's true. We need more gold.
Cover, a photo that I took says something borrowed. It's perfect.
Oh, yes. And something borrowed. Wow.
I like that.
Yeah. There you go.
So
love it.
On a few things, we did reach out to a few people to add to the book and stuff. One of the things that I thought was so special was that KEXP Radio. Yeah, are they in Seattle?
They're right in downtown Seattle. They're in Seattle Center.
Wow. So, they had done, while season 3 was airing, they would have Dean Hurley on the show. He was the music director, and he would kind of give his insight into how the music was picked.
XP and online at kexp.org. DJ Morgan here with you again for another check-in on the 13th episode of the new season of Twin Peaks. Here each and every week with us is Dean Hurley, music supervisor of Twin Peaks. Hi, Dean. How's it going?
Hi, it's going great. How are you?
Good, thanks. And we had a very, very special performance in the Roadhouse on this week's episode. If anybody remembers back in season 2 to when James Hurley and Maddie and Donna are on Donna's living room floor singing a song. James has made a reprise of this song, Just You, and he's playing it in the Roadhouse. Can you talk about how that came about and the song as it's performed at the Roadhouse?
Yeah, that was... David really wanted to reprise that song, and from the get-go, I think from the early moment idea of doing multiple acts in the Roadhouse, he was like, I want James to sing Just You in the Roadhouse, and so we prepared that, and James Marshall, the actor, was pretty excited to do it, and it's kind of again like the collapsing of time, throughout the show where you have these, the characters are older, their lives have changed, the world has evolved, and we're back with that song, and in the second season it was such a interesting, bizarre usage, and here he is all these years later performing it in the Roadhouse and kind of looking longingly toward his love interest.
I reached out to KEXP and I said, hey, I love these interviews you got with Dean Hurley. Could we add that to the book? And they were like, yes. And I was like, wow. To me, I don't know if everybody's had a chance to see that. Hear his stuff. To me, it was just so special. Sometimes it was one of the things like, oh, I like the idea of having every part have some commentary from him. And it was so cool that they were generous to just say, yes, you can put this in the book.
Yeah.
So thank you. Thank you, man.
Well, I know a couple of the DJs over there, if not all of them, are pretty big fans. I know DJ Morgan has been to Fest a couple times and goes to a lot of fan events and is a wonderful fan. So,
and Morgan was the one that interviewed Dean Hurley. So it was kind of like, I was we were working with the people and saying, hey, would Morgan be okay if we used her interviews with Dean Hurley? And they were so generous to let us do that.
It made that section of the book very special, I thought.
Yeah, she did a great job, and obviously so did Dean. She's wonderful.
And we had gotten we had interviewed Jennifer Lynch. I think it was for Boxing Helena, and it's been like 4 years. I've been trying to go back and forth with Jennifer, and she's just a very busy. She's just so busy with directing and stuff.
I love saying that she's working.
Yeah, I do too. Isn't that crazy to be like she should have? I mean, she deserved it 30 years ago to be getting the work she's getting now. But I'm so happy for her. There was things I wanted, and I think we wanted with the whole Laura Palmer diary that we never got. And so again, we reached out to, I think it's Nerd Nora podcast.
Yes.
And we reached out to them, and they had done a great interview with Jennifer Lynch. How long ago? It could have been 5 years ago now,
Wow.
4 years ago, something like that. It was actually they no longer do the podcast. That interview is not available anywhere anymore. I looked all over the internet. I tried to go to the Wayback Machine on the internet and say, is there a way to get back to that interview? I couldn't. So I reached out to the people. I reached out and I asked them, could we include part of that interview in our book? And they were so generous as well to let us
That's
do
very
that.
cool.
So
what incredible community support.
It really is. I mean, this whole book is all about the community, isn't it? I mean,
Right.
It really is.
There was one podcast that really held out. They said we only do it if we got to publish your book, and that was the Red Room podcast. I mean, Scott was really holding back. He said, "Listen, I'm only going to do it if I get a piece of that pie."
Right.
So I'm kidding.
He almost took over the whole book. It almost became Red Room Unwrapped.
Yes.
It almost the pictures were started.
It was turning to the Blue Rose magazine.
Yes, it was. Yes. But Scott, he was the best. I mean, we've said it many times before, but to believe in us, two people who are not writers, to be like, yes, I'm, without writing anything. Usually, a lot of publishers, they want to see something first. It was kind of like we just said, hey, we want to do that. We have this idea, and he says, go for it. And he just was on board, and he believed in us, even when I missed my deadline. How many?
Twice. We missed our deadline twice.
I think
now you know why I was like, Ben, maybe we should put this book out in June.
I know. I think it was supposed to be in November, then December.
No, it was before the holidays, and January, and then February.
And then I was shocked when Scott wasn't happy that I didn't have the book done yet.
I don't know why he wasn't happy. I thought he'd be in a great mood.
Oh no, he was cool. He really was so cool.
Yeah.
I mean, he was so supportive of us.
Scott did a fantastic job.
He does
putting
the layout.
the book together.
I mean, we have the content, and he really says, how are we going to structure this? How is this going to work? And he's a madman. He worked his ass off on this. Yeah,
he did a great job putting the photos in there with just where they're placed, and we had the final say, but he did such a great job. I don't think we didn't do major changes. What are you going to say, Jill?
As much as we joke about Scott, I've got to say he has such a nose for what the community wants and what the community needs as far as books go, and as far as who has things to say that need to be heard. So like publishing your book and putting out Courtney Stallings' book that's coming up.
Yeah.
And the Blue Rose magazine. I think that, he's really tied the community together in that way. So, don't tell anybody I gave him props, but
I'll cut this all out. Don't worry, Jill.
No, you can.
And, it's also interesting how our book came out in tandem with Conversations with Mark Frost, which we had Bushman on not that long ago. And I think both books complement each other coming out like this. You get the 2-pack, which you can still get, but they complement each other because there's some interesting stories Mark Frost tells that somehow when you read our book, you'll be like, you get a fuller picture. And
yeah,
it's
if
kind of
anything,
cool.
if you started with Twin Peaks Unwrapped, I feel like Mark Frost would tell us a little bit of this stuff. And then if you go to Bushman's book, Conversations with Mark Frost, he does elaborate so much. So it was kind of cool to knowing what we knew, and then all of a sudden I'm opening up David Bushman's book. It's like, this makes so much more sense and so much more in depth.
I know. So these books complement each other very well.
And the great thing is that Blue Rose Mag has this combo where you can get both Twin Peaks Unwrapped and David Bushman's Conversations with Mark Frost together. You can get both of them, and it's cheaper. It's as a discount. I believe you're only paying for shipping for one book,
right? And
it's a good deal. Yeah. And I've actually seen a lot of people on Twitter who's been taking advantage of the deal. Why didn't I take it? Why did Scott do this deal after I had already bought Bushman's book? I mean, actually, then I would have to buy my own book.
Yeah. But Jill, I want to say, not that long ago, you posted some great photos of the book with Laura's log on the beach, on the shore there, and those were amazing. And I want to say thank you to the whole community for posting their photos of the book.
It makes our day. It really does. Like every day when I see people post
it's a present.
It's so special. Friends that we've talked to or that we just know through online. It's so special to see that they got the book and how happy they are as well. I mean,
yeah, it's beautiful. And the only problem that I had taking the pictures at Laura's log was that I wished the book was a lot bigger, like maybe 3 feet, so that I could put it on the ground like Laura and take a picture from far away.
Man, if we had known this, that we could have got like a poster board of that, and that would have been so funny.
That would be really cool.
That you made my day. I thought that was so cool to have Laura wrapped in plastic and our book at the log. I mean, you can't beat that. I mean, that is. I never would have thought that. You should go into marketing, Jill. Like that is just brilliant.
Well, on your next trip to town, now you have a project.
Yes.
Oh man, but those photos were amazing, and just everybody on social media, like the outpouring of love that weekend when the book came out, surprisingly to a lot of us, because Ben and myself were surprised. Scott surprised us.
First of all, Scott didn't tell us that the book had finished printing. Like we saw the cover being printed.
Yeah.
That's all we knew. And like both Bryon and I would be begging Scott. It's like, so how's the printing going? How's the printing going?
Be patient.
Be patient. Be patient. And then all of a sudden it's Bino who gets the book in the mail.
Yeah. And, Ben mentions to me, he goes, Scott posted that the Mark Frost book's going out, and our book's supposed to be going out with it, so I think our book is done, and I think Scott's trying to surprise us. And I said, ooh, you could be right, but it's Scott, so he could just be saying things. I don't know.
And then, my wife is saying, it's like, I bet you Bryon and Scott are in this together to surprise you.
And I actually had no idea. I'm like, no. So Scott did surprise us. Bino gets the first social media post. Ben's like, oh my God, the book is out. I go home and I have a package.
The same day.
And I rush.
Well, actually, the first thing is, it's like I'm like, Bryon, maybe when you go home, it'll be there.
Yeah.
And Bryon texts me, sorry, the book, it's not
the
there.
package is not here. But they were hiding behind some steps, which normally people don't put packages there. They knew this was very important and that someone could steal it off my porch.
Somebody wanted your books.
Yeah, they knew porch pirates were looking for this booty. And so they hid it. They hid it very well.
Twin Peaks Unwrapped book. What do I want this?
Yeah. So I yeah, I see the package. I'm like, Ben, I got him. I rushed to Ben's work and we opened it together. And it was a great moment.
Wait, I don't know. Would I have waited? I don't know if
I hope you would have.
That reminds me, I was going to bring something in today.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll get it eventually.
Scott also gave us the first printing of the cover.
Yeah, which I want to frame. That's really cool.
I hope I can last. I hope I can bring it. It's in a tube at home right now. The kids hopefully haven't used it as a sword yet.
Oh, boy.
That was so cool that you waited and you brought it in and we opened it together. And, we have a few books for ourselves.
Yeah, so those photos you saw of us, that was like we had just opened that package. We were so excited.
That was our first impression. That was our first time seeing the actual physical book.
Yeah.
So cool.
Oh, my gosh. What a treat.
It was
treat for everybody. I mean, when I got it, the first thing I thought of was I've got to get out to Kiana and take a picture of this at Laura's log. Like that was the first thought. And so I was carrying it around in my bag, and I almost forgot my bag. When I went out there, but yeah, that worked out. And I think it's so cool that everybody's been sending you their pictures, because it's such a fun book. It's such a fun community thing, and to share that with everybody and have everybody sharing it with each other and sharing it with you, it's just neat.
Yeah, definitely.
And before we go, we also have to mention that we got somebody who did the foreword of the book.
The Godfather of Twin Peaks?
Godfather of Twin Peaks, John Thorne, actually did our foreword.
I know. Very nice.
That was awesome. I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, like he is like
the man.
The man. He is the guy that knows Twin Peaks the best, and to have him be part of the book was so cool.
Yeah, definitely. Oh man,
amazing.
I'm amazing. Like, it's weird, Jill. Like I told Ben, even when we physically got the book, I was just like, I still can't believe the book's done. Yeah. Like I really, it didn't hit me.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because we have an announcement to make. And when we first talked about making this book, I think what we forgot to put on the cover was it was supposed to say Volume 1.
That was my idea. I didn't know what we were going to do.
Bryon was going to call this Volume 1.
They said when we ever do a second book, we have a Volume 2. That's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen. We are done being authors. This is our one and only.
One and done, baby.
Yes. But that was funny. I do like the Volume 1 thing.
That was my original idea.
Your joke, though. You still had no intention of making a second book.
No.
You just thought it'd be funny to have Volume
1. Because I thought to myself, well, if we ever came back and we did something like. I thought like if we did season 4 hit and then we did more interviews, that we could do another book. But after doing this, I was like, well...
It could be called More Twin Peaks Unwrapped.
Yeah, we could do that.
You guys could have called it Volume 2, and then in true Lynch style, go back and do a prequel book.
Oh.
See? Non-linear book series.
It would be a prequel sequel, though.
Yeah, like Fire Walk with Me.
Yeah, exactly.
Man.
So cool.
Well, when that time comes, Joe, we're coming to you for ideas.
Yes, because we know where to go.
we know where to go.
And it's really thank you to you for helping us edit this book, and for your contributions to be able to get people to be a part of this. And yeah, you just had so much insight, and that means so much to us that you're able to add to it.
Well, thank you for the trust and for the confidence, and I had so much fun with that, and so much fun talking with you guys about it today. This has been really, really neat. So thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for putting up with our ramblings.
Boys. Oh, you're true men. You're true men.
True men. Yes. I like that.
Yes.
Bookhouse boys, true men.
True men.
Yes.
Yeah. But Jill, where can people find your beautiful work online? You have your artwork and your great photos. Like, where can people find you on social media?
Pie for Jill. Pie is in delicious pie. The number 4 Jill. That's Instagram and Twitter. And then I think I have a Jill Watson art page on Instagram also. But I post it all in my personal one too. So. And
you sell some stuff, right? Do you have a Etsy page?
I do. It's called Falls Rocks. One word. Falls Rocks, because I started by doing wire wrapping on rocks, and now I do resin stuff, and now I'm just pretty much selling art prints.
That's great. So, your artwork is amazing.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, I love it.
And your photography. Oh, I love your photography.
Yeah,
It's stunning. I mean, to be at the actual Twin Peaks Falls and those pictures are just so beautiful.
Yeah.
And I love the photos that like you're in the woods and you can see
peeking out.
You can see the falls. And to me that's Twin Peaks. You're in the woods, but you also somehow are with the waterfall. It's like, stunning.
Oh, thank you guys. I love sharing it with people who can't physically be here. So I'm glad that social media exists for that reason. It's wonderful.
So thank you again, Jill, for being on today's show. And if you have a comment, question, or theory, or you want to know how to order this book, give us an email at twinpeaksunwrapped@gmail.com.
Why do they have to wait? Why do they have to email you this? Why can't you just tell them that it's
love emails,
BlueRoseMag.com? They can get the book. They don't need to email you about
Show
that.
notes are always in. All links are always in the show notes, but I enjoy emails too, Ben. I like to have an email occasionally. We love the emails we get. We got a couple from people who are not on social media congratulating us on the book, which
That's
was
so
very
awesome. Thank
sweet
you so
of them.
much.
But yes, if you want to get our book, like Ben said, BlueRoseMag.com. The links are always in the show notes. Give us that 5-star review on iTunes. We're on Google Play. We're on Spotify. Follow us on Twitter. Like us on Facebook. And we will see you guys next week.
My dream is to go to that place, you know, the one where it all began. On a starry night, on a starry night, when